Good afternoon and welcome. We are gathered here today as friends and family to witness and celebrate the marriage of Brian Joseph Hanifin and Noreen Lee Goes. We thank you for being here today. The many guests and the many miles that some of you have traveled to be here clearly show the abundance of love and affection that all of you have for this beautiful couple. Reggie, Noreen's overly jealous, very protective dog, declined the invitation. My name is Josh, and I've known Brian and Noreen for over 15 years, and to say the least, it is an honor to have been invited to perform this ceremony today. Now, this is not my normal line of work, but the trust and respect that they showed me in inviting me to do this is greatly appreciated, so thank you. I would like to take a moment to remember Brian's mother, Christy Hanifin. Noreen and Brian have created a special candle to burn in her memory. It is off to your left here. Brian's first thoughts upon hearing the news of his mother's passing was that she would not get to see his wedding. For Brian, it was the idea of finding someone he could love in the same way that his parents loved each other that gave him hope during that sad time. Brian has found that special person, and that is why we are here today. Noreen and Brian made my job very simple. I was told there is no need for me to explain and elaborate on how much they love each other and how marriage is a serious commitment. The couple assumes that these are considered to be obvious aspects and assumptions about being in love and getting married. Furthermore, Brian and Noreen know that I have a tendency to talk a lot, so I was instructed by Noreen to make it longer than a toast but keep it shorter than a eulogy. So to avoid repeating what is and what should be obvious, I would like to share some not-so-obvious stories about the couple. It all started with an email that opened, "Is that you, Noreen?" Well, actually, it started before that. See, Brian and Noreen have known each other ever since high school, but back then, they were more acquaintances, friends of friends. Almost 8 years after their graduation, Noreen and Brian had their second start. Now, as most of you probably know, Brian and Noreen's unique occupations are a big part of their identities. And their occupations were always subtly making themselves known in the early stages of their relationship and on those first few dates. It is fitting that their romantic involvement began via computer, given Brian's career. And it is even more fitting that on their second date, Noreen told Brian to pull over to assist in 1126. That's a broken down vehicle. And by the third date, which was dinner and Scrabble with Noreen's family, it was official that Brian would be the Goes family computer repairman. Shortly after these first outings, Noreen gave Brian a quiz of sorts. For Noreen, these were questions that Brian had to get right. Now, I know what you're thinking. Would you like to have children someday? Or maybe, what does love mean to you? But surprisingly, the questions were much more simplistic than that. They were, what is an average? And what is the difference between buying and leasing? I guess these had been sore subjects with Noreen in the past. Brian answered the questions correctly, barely. For the average question, Brian's knowledge of baseball, specifically the batting average, really paid off. The second question proved to be a bit trickier. As their love developed, it is interesting to note how on several occasions they made conclusions about each other at the same moment, and often at Padre games. On opening day for the Padres in 2003, Noreen and Brian both realized that they were in love. This afternoon, Brian got sunscreen in his eyes and was partially blinded for the rest of the game. Some could say he was blinded by love. Thought that would go a bit better. But there's a difference between being in love and wanting to spend the rest of your life together. In speaking with Brian and Noreen, both of them identified their first Christmas together as that defining moment when they both knew, as individuals, that they would be together forever. It was at that time that Noreen decided that Brian was the one. And at that same time, Brian first considered proposing because it felt right and he felt at home with Noreen's family. That proposal took place at, you guessed it, a Padres game. At the end of the game, with a bottom of the ninth comeback win by the Padres, Brian leaned over, told Noreen he loved her, and asked if she would spend the rest of her life with him. Noreen didn't immediately answer. In fact, I'm not sure if we ever received a definitive yes, but we will make that official today. The presence and influence of Brian and Noreen's families is a great asset to this couple. Simply put, they have excellent role models. Last weekend, while out to lunch at the wedding party, I had the opportunity to hear Noreen's father, Eric, give his personal endorsement of all things marriage. He said, "I just want you to know that getting married and having children is the best thing that ever happened to me." He and Sandy have had 31 years of Friday night dates and consider each other best friends. Dave and Christy were married for over 20 years. My first memories of Brian are that of baseball, which included his parents supporting him at every baseball game he played. I don't think there was a baseball game that the two of them weren't at. They continue to support and encourage him coming out to his baseball games, even into his adult life. These are the type of parents that Brian and Noreen's children will have. Noreen and Brian share and cherish these values of family and future. Both of their parents shared that same bond. Brian once told me about his parents. Watching them, I know it's possible to find happiness sharing the rest of your life with the right person. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Noreen when I realized that we had the same chemistry with each other. Noreen picked Brian with her heart and her mind, because love isn't all you need. You need friendship, similar values and goals, and of course, you need to love her dogs. Noreen told me that with Brian, she is not only gaining a husband, but a family. She went on to tell me, "Brian makes me smile, laugh, dance, and have hope. Brian is my companion for life." Brian, Noreen, may this moment be the start of a life more fulfilling than you can imagine. And now, it is time for the marriage vows. Brian, you take Noreen to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward. I do. And Noreen, likewise. Do you take Brian to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward?
I do.
Let us now exchange the rings. It is often said the ring is a circle, a shape with no beginning and no end, to symbolize the unending love and commitment pledged in the wedding vows. In fact, it's a circle because that's the shape that fits the finger best. I was really looking for a bigger circle than that one. Rings are made precious by wearing them. They carry our meaning. They say who we are, where we have been, and where we're going. Your wedding rings are most special because they say that even in your uniqueness, you have chosen to be bonded, to allow the presence of another human being to enhance who you are. Your rings carry the potent double message. We are individuals, and yet we belong to each other. We are not alone. Now, Brian and Noreen, will you please exchange your rings? Before we conclude, Brian and Noreen, please remember that this wedding is only a symbol, a celebration, a public recognition of what already exists in your hearts. It is your marriage and not something created by the state or religion. It is yours to define, yours to make real, yours to live. Nothing I can say can make it any more than what already exists between the two of you. And with that being said, by the virtue of authority vested in me as Deputy Commissioner of Civil Marriages in and for the County of San Diego, I take pleasure in pronouncing you husband and wife. Brian